The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us, that's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family and available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Chris Dashew.
And I'm Jess Byard.
And we are the hosts of the One Season Show, a podcast where we take a look at TV shows that only lasted one season.
Each month we'll tackle several episodes of the show. In this episode, we are going two more into The Prisoner with ABC and The General.
Yeah, this is a show that exists that we're watching. And this puts us, I think, right near the halfway point of the show, actually, as well.
Yeah, so, 16 episodes, correct?
17 episodes. Okay. 17 episodes. Yeah, this is we're right near the halfway point. So let's get right to it with ABC and The General.
Already been chewed.
Gross.
I know. It's all I can. I'm 5, and that's all I could think of.
Oh, wow.
Patrick McGoohan is the prisoner, trapped in a strange, terrifying prison.
A lot of people are curious about what lies behind your resignation. They want to know why you suddenly left. A man like you is worth a great deal on the open market. The information in your head is priceless. I don't think you realize what a valuable property you've become. What a valuable property you've become.
Patrick McGoohan is the prisoner.
So ABC is directed by Pat Jackson, written by Anthony Skeen. Colin Gordon plays number 2, and it's actually interesting. Number 2 is played by the same actor in both of these episodes. Which is a little odd for this show, because up until this point, we've seen only essentially a rotating cast of people playing number 2.
Right, and given that we, the 6 of 1 order that we're following, interesting that they put these two
Makes
together.
sense, I guess.
Yeah.
It also stars Sheila Allen as number 14 and Catherine Kath as a woman who knows number 6 quite well. So this episode essentially takes place inside of a dream manipulation machine where number 2 and number 14 are attempting to figure out why number 6 resigned from his position through the use of introducing people into his dreams through tapes. Hence the A, B, and C. A, B, and C all indicate a person that they introduce into his dreams. It's an interesting episode because for once it's actually doing something that is both sci-fi and different from what we've been seeing up until this point.
Yeah, I really liked this episode, actually. I thought a large part of why I liked this episode is that it's all taking place within the village. It's all of its purpose, all of its characters, everything we're doing is taking place in the village. And what I mean by that is every episode we've watched pretty much up till now is number 6 trying to escape the village. So we don't really, we see some of what's going on in the town. We of course meet people. We know they have elections. There are some things, but this, I don't know, this just feels more about the village, and it feels more like number 6 is, I don't know, maybe starting to get used to being there and not, his main focus is not escape in this, because it's more so trying to figure out, how these people are inside of his dreams, which in itself is a really interesting plot device, because we haven't really seen any type of, like you said, more sci-fi, tech, other than these ridiculous phones and just like the futuristic aesthetic to everything. But now we're getting actual, and the rover, yes. But now we're getting actual, like, drugs and tapes. And so she, number 14 injects number 6 with this serum that allows his brain to be manipulated, which introduces a whole new realm of implications. So yeah, I thought that this episode was fun. I liked the fact that because we got to go into number 6's dreams, we aren't just, bouncing back between his apartment in the village and number 2's office. We get to see sort of the outside world. I liked all the fight sequences in these. I thought that they were really fun. I think that Patrick McGoohan is particularly charismatic in this episode. I think that he seems like he's having fun in this episode. So what, did you dig it as well?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I mean, I'm pretty much in agreement with everything you have said about it. It's an interesting, fun episode that does a lot more with the setup and the framing device than any other episode does. I mean, again, utilizing kind of future-ish tech is... Mm-hmm. It works in the episode's favor because, like you said, a lot of these episodes have been very much one note, the same thing over and over and over again. Stuck in the village, tries to escape, can't escape because of XYZ reason. And I like that this episode isn't that, because if it were that, I don't know. I mean, I need something more from these episodes at this point because we're pretty much halfway into the show. And if every episode was the same thing from the halfway point to the end, I would be getting rather frustrated.
Right.
But it's not. I mean, it's a lot more interesting. And, ultimately, when you have an episode like this that does something out of the ordinary for the rest of the show so far, it does stick out in a positive way.
Yeah, and as I was watching this episode, or these 2 episodes, I was just kind of thinking about the show up to this point. And I think that it's a show that I mean, yes, I am enjoying it, but yes, agreed. Because we're watching it so, continuously and back to back, the sameness of each episode does become very apparent very quickly. But I do think that, like, if this show were just something that I tuned into randomly, almost in a way you would a sitcom, where if you miss a few episodes, it's not a huge deal. I think that it might be more enjoyable because I'm spacing it out, and I'm because I enjoy the world within each episode. I enjoy being there, but yes, as a series as a whole, it's not really going anywhere. And that, that is a narrative problem. But, as individual little, maybe even sort of like one-off stories where number 6 is sort of just traversing this weird village land, I think that could have been, if they'd committed more to that sort of premise where it's not the same conceit each time where he's trying to escape. Right. It could be a different story, but still just be one-offs each time.
Yeah, no, like you said, what's weird about this show is obviously they redid it in 2009 to lesser success, apparently. I mean, again, we haven't gotten around to watching it, and I think at some point we should probably at least watch an episode or 2 to comment on it. But This is the kind of show that needed week-to-week continuity because of the inherent nature of the storyline. Right. And because this show came out when it came out in the late 60s, it wasn't beholden to the kinds of storytelling ideas and essentially storytelling norms that we have in, 2020. And so without those storytelling norms, you have a story like this where it, for all intents and purposes, should be connected every week. It should be building to a finale, or at least a mid-season finale and then a final series finale. But because of when this show came out, it doesn't have those kinds of things because shows like Star Trek were out at the same time as this, and Star Trek never had like a season arc for the characters or a season mythology. That's a new idea. That is an idea that has come around in the last 30, 40 years of television.
And peak TV.
Yeah, wasn't the expectation then, and so you can't fault the show for it, but sitting here in 2020, it's hard to look back and not want that from the show.
Well, I mean, even wanting more, like you said, Star Trek is out around this time. And you're right. Yeah. Star Trek, the original series, doesn't really have too many, maybe they have a couple, multi-parter episodes, but they don't have, there's not a full character arc through everything. Everybody's pretty much who they are. But even still, each episode is at least entertaining and fun because we're going to new worlds, we're seeing new people, we're doing new things, and we have like these characters that we build a relationship with, and we like, some of their eccentricities, and we come to love those. With this, I'm kind of reminded of a little bit of Kitchen Confidential, where we're teetering this weird line where, like how Kitchen Confidential was teetering a strange line of sitcom and maybe dramedy, but it also failed to have like a really decent and consistent story arc and character development. Everybody just kind of reset from episode to episode. And that's kind of what's happening here. I think that The Prisoner, at least for me, is maybe succeeding a little bit because I do feel like there's some kind of progression happening, at least within the characters. And I do think that, like, as we're seeing different number twos come around, we're seeing that some of them are getting more frustrated. And so we realize, number 6 is having an effect on what's going on here, and he is starting to grate at them. For me, I don't know, I kind of like to watch that slow unraveling. But yeah, it's weird because we're in this.
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of The Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
This middle ground, and even still, like Kitchen Confidential, that show was around even before like peak TV, like right before it, sure, but we were still very much like, in the late 90s, early 2000s spin of sitcoms. And so we were just kind of coming out of that. And I think that it's really interesting to look at TV in this way in these different decades and kind of see how it was evolving, because we know the shows that were out in the 60s and they were all, your little 20, 30 minute wholesome family friendly episodes of Bewitched and Lucy and all of that stuff. And everybody pretty much resets. And then we get shows like The Twilight Zone, which are also one-offs, but they're more serious and they're more intentional with what they're trying to say. They're not just, sure, you're watching a new story every week, but that new story has a message and has something that it's trying to hammer home to you. It's not just a sitcom to make you laugh for 30 minutes and then forget about later.
I mean, this show really would have benefited from not better writing, but it's clear they didn't. I mean, again, we've touched on this now several times. It's clear that they didn't have any idea where this show was going.
Right, and that's a failure of Patrick McGoohan and other creators on this, other showrunners and producers on this show. That I think,
100%. I mean,
a large part of
the blame lays at their feet.
Right, and a large part of it, too, is this show is very ambitious for 1968, 1966. Like, the amount of detail that's going into the set design in this is something that's, really not touched on much in TV shows of the 60s, where they were all done pretty much within sound stages in 1 or 2 rooms, max. We're getting this whole
Star
world.
Trek.
Exactly. But now we're getting this whole world, the villages, and creating all these different textures and atmospheres. And I think that they really succeed in that. And I think that a large part of this show's, likability for me is that atmosphere and aesthetic and the world that it's built, that I don't mind being lost in it, even if it kind of seems to be, meandering and not going too many places. But if this show lacked that, I think that it would be much more difficult for me to get through.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, again, there's a lot of positives with the show. I just think that, when you look at an episode like this that has broken the mold of the show, because the show has done almost nothing creative, but it hasn't broken its own mold in the last several episodes. When you see an episode like ABC, it is so different that it makes me wish more of the episodes we've watched up until this point were like this episode. And they were taking chances and doing interesting different things, as opposed to just showing the daily lives of the people in the village. But we don't need to see that 5 times over. I mean, 1 or 2 episodes maybe, but not 5 of the last 6 episodes.
Right. And then we get on to the next episode.
Yeah, don't we? So The General is directed by Peter Graham Scott, written by Louis Griefer. Stars once again Colin Gordon as number 2 and John Castle as well. A learning process becomes the village's newest fad, but number 6 is sure that number 2 is using it as a brainwashing tool. Yeah, I guess that's what this episode is about.
Sure.
It sure doesn't seem like it.
Why not? All I know is
this episode
is
the worst episode we've watched so far.
It really is. And there's a variety of reasons to that. One for me being, and I know that we just mentioned here that it's interesting that they have the same actor playing number 2 in these 2 episodes. I'm not a fan of this version of number 2 so much. I don't find him particularly engaging or interesting to watch, where some of the other ones were, at least a little more flamboyant and fun and engaging
or something.
Yeah. He's very, very bland.
He's a bureaucrat.
Yes, exactly. He's a bureaucrat villain, and he's boring, and that, whereas number 2 is usually kind of like the fun spot that pops up in a lot of these episodes. Unfortunately, this is not one of those, and we are stuck with him for 2. And then, we go into this episode where number 6 has to kill the general because reasons. I don't know. I honestly don't know what's happening in this episode for 90% of it. And my note card that I take notes on for each of these episodes, ABC is pretty full. This one, I have 3 lines, and the last one is why. And this episode ends with somebody just saying, why? And that's exactly how I felt at the end of it.
Yeah, it's we've talked in the past about on this show with The Prisoner, several of these episodes that are kind of unintelligible with what's going on. This episode is completely unintelligible.
Yeah, I really don't even know, quite honestly, what to say so much about it. Because I don't really know what was going on. I know that number 6 has to kill this this general, and that's about it. I mean, did you get anything? I know that there's also these exams that they have to take. Yeah,
I didn't understand I understood kind of the setup, but I did not understand the follow through in the episode, because it just didn't seem like the episode was giving the initial premise enough room to breathe. It was just jumping from one thing to another so quickly that it wasn't allowing any of the ideas to fully breathe, or I guess to fully kind of grow for the audience to kind of be given an understanding and a reason as to why these things are going on. And then at the end of the episode, what essentially happens is none of the ideas matter, and they're all dropped in the episode.
Right.
And we've had that happen before, where the episode just kind of ends out of nowhere, and it's really jarring when it happens then, and it's even more jarring now because, again, we're getting to the halfway point of the show, and I wasn't expecting them to continue doing it, yet here we are.
Well, and I mean, with the last time they did it, it at least appeared like it was going to be a cliffhanger, which even though it inevitably was not resolved, but still it did kind of have that, whereas this one does just feel like somebody just said, and that's it. That's all we shot. See you later. And yeah, the editing on this one is really weird and quick and jumpy. It's this episode definitely feels like they just kind of didn't have a complete script and just shot a bunch of stuff and threw it together and hoped that, you know, it would at least be, you know, aesthetically pleasing to watch. But even this one's not that interesting. Like, there's just nothing that interesting about this episode in general, and it's incoherent.
Well, and the other thing about this episode is when you contrast it against the last episode. I mean, the last episode, it was good. Obviously, we both liked it.
Right.
But, you know, the last episode, it's not like it was really doing anything crazy creative in just a general narrative sense. But the thing is, it was bolstered by a charismatic performance by Patrick McGoohan.
Mm-hmm.
And this episode doesn't have any of that.
No.
It doesn't allow him to be charismatic or interesting. And again, bringing back Colin Gordon as the other number 2. I mean, in the last episode, you kind of just ignored it because everything else going on was so interesting. But here, the failings of his character version of number 2 are kind of front and center, and it's not great.
No, it's
not
boring.
Interesting as number 2 at all. And like that seems to be like the, you know, the monsters of the week in the X-Files, or the kind of the villains in the episodes of Star Trek. I mean, these characters in the show are almost only as good as their villains that they're dealing with and the directions that their villains are pushing them in. And obviously with this show, you have a number 2 every week who's being recast. And so some of them are interesting and they allow Patrick McGoohan to have something interesting to do. And then some of them are what we have here, which is a complete bureaucratic, dry character that is neither interesting nor exciting. And it, you know, if your character isn't interesting or exciting to begin with, then Patrick McGoohan is really not able to kind of work off of that character.
No, not at all. Yeah, this episode is unfortunately, like, if you're watching this episode and you are, you know, you could pass this one, absolutely, and it's not going to matter one bit. I would recommend it. It's not really worth the time. This is mostly just it's a total filler failure of an episode for me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm disappointed at this episode. Like, this is the first episode where I'm just completely disappointed at the show.
Right.
At the show and what the show is trying to pass off as an episode, because it feels like a half-formed idea, if even half-formed.
Right.
So what episodes are we talking about on the next show?
Well, next episode we are going to be talking about 8 and 9, The Schizoid Man, and Many Happy Returns. But again, that is our 6-to-1 ordering.
The ordering we're going with, as opposed to, I guess, maybe an official ordering. Who knows? Who knows what's official anymore with this show? There doesn't seem to be any official is all in the eye of the beholder, I guess, with this show. So until then, where can people find you, Jess?
People can find me on Twitter at writer Jess Byard. You can find me on your show, Chris, The Culture Cast. You can find me there twice a month where we're talking about movies. You can find me on our podcast, our other podcast, Scary Stories We Tell, where Chris and I navigate through true crime, horror culture, and the unexplained. So we have interviews, one-offs, all kinds of fun stuff there. And yeah, that's about it. What about you, Chris?
Just follow me on Twitter, casualty_Chris. I plug all the things that I'm part of on there. So there you go. And you mentioned everything else. So no,
Blam.
Yeah, nothing else really to mention. Check us out on Twitter at One Season Show, and we are at oneseasonshow.com. Big thanks as always to the music for the One Season Show, which is Mustaches and Martinis. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love, Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind the scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.